that if businesses are to invest in East Cleveland, one, we have to find the special people who are willing to take that risk, because there's a bit of a risk. We had to find those special people. But once we found those special people, we could make them aware that while East Cleveland's land is low priced, and in some cases full of horrible looking structures, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Developers who know that if you can get high value land for a relatively low price, that's a gift that you can't get. And if that land at a relatively low price with relatively high value also comes with new market tax credits and development credits and zero property tax on newly built structures or significantly renovated structures, then that makes it even better. What we try to do is crush down the cost of development so low that the developer can't help but make a disproportionately high return on investment if they choose to invest in the city of East Cleveland. We want the reward to be disproportionate to the risk that they are able to take. Plus, they have a mayor who's got a relationship with the university, a university who's helping out, and people who understand that there must be something dramatically new in East Cleveland from an incentive standpoint to give someone the opportunity to invest in East Cleveland and keep them there. We also talked about, we love people who invest out of the goodness of their heart. But if I have to choose between someone who invests out of the goodness of their heart and someone who has their own money invested in my city, I choose the person who has their own money invested. I choose the person who has a financial interest and economic interest in the city of East Cleveland, because the goodness of your heart can go away. But in economic investment, you got something that can't go away very, very quickly. So we choose that route. But again, those are the types of things that we had to address up front. That was the type of situation that we're dealing with. Mark is responsible for the traffic cameras in East Cleveland, and that was a joke, just to make sure you're not asleep. But
me and my family have helped invest in the community.
And just know, Mark, that your dollars are well spent and business is good, so we appreciate that. But with that, I could talk for 20 more minutes, but I will spare you the agony of that and go to Mark, the next portion of your conversation. One thing, though, the map that you just had up,
Yep.
When Mark mentioned that we had some $2.2 million in Neighborhood Stabilization Program resources, Neighborhood Stabilization Program was the Bush administration's answer to the issue that cities have with vacant and abandoned houses. We could do a number of things. What you see here is a map of East Cleveland. This is one corner of our city. This here is the University Circle area. A lot of dilapidated structures along Euclid Avenue as you get into East Cleveland. What we try to do when we talk about crushing down the cost of economic development, we know that developers prefer a field of grass versus a parcel that has bad structures on it that they have to get rid of. In order to increase the appeal of this area that's so close to Case to potential developers and to the university, we targeted our demolition funds in this area so we could aid economic development and get rid of blight at the same time. Up here, it was more residential relief. These are residential areas in East Cleveland, and there are residents whose property values have been lowered, whose family members have been made ashamed, who've had vacant, abandoned, unsafe, burned out structures next to them for 10 to 15 years, and their biggest ask of the city is, please get rid of this vacant and abandoned house next to me. So this represents 200 of the demolitions that we did by about mid-2011. So when I came in January 2010, this is about mid-2011. We had done about 200. So far, we're up to about 350, and we're going to do another 100 this year. We've moved to larger 10 and 20 suite apartment buildings that have been standing vacant for a long time. And it's the dirty work, the root canal work that needs to be done to clear the way for economic development and give people some sense of hope and relief.
Here's one of the big buildings you took down.
So Mark, if maybe if you want to take another 7-8 minutes, then we'll let the group check in some, and we can pick up some additional work in the Q&As. That makes
Yep.
sense.
All right, so what did we learn from this? And this is where some of the literature comes in. And one of the things we learned is that there's a need from a social justice perspective for the learning to be about cultural competence and the power dynamics. As you know, I'm white. Most of our university is white, and we're working in a 95% African American community.
I had no idea. If I had known that.
So it's about cultural competence, both from a School of Social Work for our students' perspective, but also as faculty. What does it mean to work in that across cultures? And paying attention to power dynamics. It also means paying attention to personal assumptions and biases, and I'm going to get into that in a second. And the opportunities for intergroup contact to build that sense of empathy, mutual respect, and understanding. Our students, I can honestly say, they often were afraid to go into East Cleveland, but as they were there, they developed these relationships with residents because we had them do interviews with residents and community leaders, and they came back with this great sense of, oh my gosh, the people of East Cleveland are amazing. And and we worked on that. We held a number of meetings on a regular basis with community leaders and participated in community meetings to do that. What were some of the challenges we faced that we learned from our service learning? The semester timeline and the organization of coursework meant that our relationships with our partners were strained, and particularly with NOAA, and that we didn't handle that well, and so we learned some things from that. And through that dialogue, we developed a document that I want to point to. I have a copy of it here somewhere. Right here. That we called the MSS Interest and Expectations, and it's 3 pages long, and it goes through in great detail what our interests were, what our expectations were behind our involvement, because there were questions. I teach a course in community organizing, so it was natural for them to say, are you going to come and do organizing? We are an organizing organization. We already exist in East Cleveland. Are you going to come and organize the community? So, is this a threat to that? And also, we're there just to do research and publish, or were we actually there to make a difference? And so we had 6 main points that we wanted to say. I'll just mention a couple of these. Serve as the catalyst for the revitalization of East Cleveland, supporting and providing capacity building to leaders of public and nonprofit organizations. So the way we work on the revitalization is through the leaders themselves. Work to ensure that diverse voices participate in the decisions that affect the lives of marginalized populations. So we did say we wanted to conduct research, and we wanted to learn from that and share it with other communities. We talked about our institutional interest as well, and not just our personal interest as faculty. And then some 4 principles I'll mention. Authentic, meaningful, and broadly inclusive resident engagement. Reciprocity. University and MSS will give as much or more than we as institutions get. East Cleveland benefits from the participation of Case Western. East Cleveland contributes to and enriches the university and MSS. So we tried to make this a 2-way relationship. Authentic and honest relationships in which everyone freely expresses their aspirations, questions, concerns, and feedback, and promote equity and social justice within the community and across communities. Then we had some hopes for ourselves and hopes for our partners, some action steps, and some indicators of success. That document we had, in essence, a series of dialogues that led to that, and that was a very important part of our process to do that, and I wish we would have done that at the beginning. Another thing from the literature that I thought was very important to point out today is that this sense of redistributing power among those in the service learning process. So we had not been sharing how much resources were being used by the university, what did it look like dollar-wise. So we became more transparent. And the fact that I had a course buyout and what that amounted to, what time was donated, what time were we getting paid for, and being very explicit about that. And then trying to channel resources to the community itself. And so developing proposals that included payment of community workers from East Cleveland. And this identification of authentic relationships and working for social change, meaning the actual amelioration of the social conditions that were there, not just doing good, but changing structures. Finally, what were the implications? A couple more slides I'll give, and then I want to go on to the table talk that Byron mentioned. Another article that we found very helpful is this notion about what does it mean for the university? I said before, there's a hidden curriculum or an unstated lessons that are learned inside and outside the classroom. So if we're saying we want people to be in East Cleveland, we want to create this partnership, and the university personnel are saying to first-year students, don't ever go to East Cleveland. And so we had to adjust that. So we now do an orientation for first-year students, and we take students into East Cleveland, or we give them a presentation about East Cleveland. And so what is the educational atmosphere, culture, or climate? Do people feel, one of the things we learned through a youth program we have is from East Cleveland, is that, you know, it's a two-way street. The division is both ways. East Cleveland residents don't feel welcome in University Circle. Young people in particular don't feel that they are welcome there. And so what kind of a culture or environment are we trying to create? And the social role of the university and how good the university is as an institutional neighbor. One of the things President Snyder has done is been very explicit about being a good neighbor. And so some of the things she's done is she's gone on a tour into the neighborhood and to East Cleveland with us and learned and met with people. This is a little diagram. I can come back to that. I'm not going to go into that now. So what else did we do beyond the service learning? We convened a retreat with Cy Murray and Zoe at the Case Farm. The mayor's laughing.
It did work.
Yeah. If you know anything about the relationships between the mayor and the council, it's historically been a tough one. We found that be the truth. Yeah, and
white folks couldn't help us out.
yeah, and Cy Murray couldn't help us out. You had a powerful city manager, and you know he was very honest. He said, if these folks want to just talk this way, we're just going to let them do it. We can't stop them. They're adults, and that's so it was very challenging. But we tried that. We did a baseline perception survey in East Cleveland to understand the perceptions of East Cleveland about University Circle. And now we're doing one this month at Case, vice versa, to learn about faculty, staff, and students' perceptions of East Cleveland. We have an economic development committee that Norm Krumholtz has chaired. It meets monthly. There's a partnership with the East Cleveland Neighborhood Center where we've done a number of service learning programs and done program development, and we created this Bridge to the Gap program, which is between Shaw High School students and Case undergrads. Finally, I'll just end on this. The university has expanded its participation, so these are other than MSAS roles. I mentioned Case for Community Day. Fresh Link is at the medical school. There's a family dentistry clinic in East Cleveland. Social Justice Institute has an oral history project. I mentioned the baseline survey that's coming out from the provost office. We've had scholarships for the National Youth Sports Program that's held every summer at Case. And more recently, the nursing department has, Professor Faye Gary has put together a provost scholars with the support of the provost. We now have East Cleveland 8th graders coming to Case every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon, and they have a mentor that they meet with. And so Mark Joseph and I share one of these students. And so that's a little bit about our relationship. I think we should stop there, let them talk, and then we can say a few more things.
Good.
So, and I can tell you that story that I was going to tell you about the mayor confronting me. So.
That's good. That's like right after the commercial break. You have to go. So people will stick around. So I think pretty much everyone here, as I look at faces, just about all of you have been to more than one of these, and you know we try to take a break to sort of test the temperature around the table. So let's do that now.
Part of my interest and concerns is because I was a student at Case Western Reserve University, and it was during a time that the institution was even talking about shutting down some of the streets in the community. I have that, and I was a student in their Upward Bound program as well. So I'm a little reserved as I live in Cleveland Heights, but right above East Cleveland, and there are some matters I'm attentive to that I would want to yield to hear some other conversation about first. So Case Western is almost an island if you look at it as a white institution with the black community surrounding it.
To me, an increase in, finance versus an increase in personal growth and self-development for the community of the people. So I don't know.
At what point do we begin one-on-one student as a student learning experience? Just an experience, and not that I'm going to grow up to be a social worker, not that I'm going to grow up to do any of this, but I would like to know that what I'm learning in my 101 gen ed classes can contribute out there. So just that initial experience.
Out there